Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting for April 26th. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Not seeing any. I need someone to move an approval of our agenda. Councillor Tweel? Moved. Seconded by Councillor McAleer. Okay, all in favor? Good.
I have a request.
For,
Just add one item to the agenda.
okay. Well, we're going to wait till when we get to introduction of new business, but we'll be bumping that, right, for the staff to have the opportunity to come back. Usually that's how we've been following the process, where new items, unless it's something they can answer.
Yeah, it's very important.
Well, we'll bring that under new business, okay?
New business, okay. It's what it is. It's the update on the removal of the woodlots.
Yep, there will be an update on that already provided
today.
today.
I need an update on that because I'm getting more phone calls.
Okay, yeah, we'll add that in, and Joey, I think you can provide an update on that at the end,
And
so
the
that's
Park
not a
Street
big
and
thing.
Beach.
Yep,
Okay.
no, perfect.
What?
So adoption of our minutes for March 22nd, 2023. I need someone to move those. Moved by Councillor McAleer, seconded by Councillor Tweel. Do we have any business arising from those minutes? Not seeing any. Wonderful. We are going to stay on track today. I have another commitment, so I have to leave at 1:30. So we have a fairly full agenda. We're moving right into reports, and Simon from the Environment and Sustainability Department is here to talk about our current skunk and raccoon trapping program. But Scott, maybe you want to introduce that for a minute before we...
Well, I'll do the bulk of the talking. Simon's here to look good, make everyone look good, really. Okay. Yeah. So Simon's here. Simon was involved in this program back in the day when it was with Environment Sustainability. He has a bit of background in this type of work. And he's here to provide some insight on some of the research he did back then, or just to support any questions that I may not be able to answer from committee. So as everyone's aware, there is I call it a basic program that we offer to residents. It is essentially an individual can call and ask for a skunk or a raccoon trap to be set up on their property. It must be outdoors, must be somewhere, it can be around a building, but it can't be under structures and things like that. And so they call us Public Works. We put them on a list, and there's only so many traps for both skunk and raccoon traps to be set. And that list gets updated and sent to the contractor, who then will follow up with the resident, schedule a time to set it all up, and then give the resident some instructions on what they have to do for the 7 days that it's in place. The trap is, like I said, it's only there for 7 days, whether they are successful or not. So if they are successful, it could be successful day one. The resident will call the contractor, they'll come and remove the pest from the site, and then that trap would be deployed somewhere else. If they're unsuccessful at the end of 7 days, the trap is removed and goes down to the next person on the list. The individual can call back and get back on the list and get another trap at a future date, but that's how the program's been set up. So I guess I want to kind of give you an overview of how basic it is. I believe there's been some misunderstandings or an expectation from the public that it's more of a gold standard service, which it is not. The contractor does not go around the site and evaluate where the best spot would be for the trap, doesn't evaluate, provide feedback on how you could better pest-proof your home and your property. And it's not very intensive. Sometimes you need multiple traps at the same time and other help from a contractor to fix a very large issue. And this is not what this program has been set up to be. And so I think that's what has caused some issues from the public. They believe it, or, just that misunderstanding or expectation that it's more than what it is. So we're here today. I wanted to bring that forward to see if there's support. Do we want to continue with this program, or do we want to maybe better utilize our money for providing better information to the public? We're one of the only, if not the only, municipality in Canada at least that offers this. So it's a very, very unique situation. Most municipalities, and Simon can speak a little more to that, he did some research on it, but most municipalities just provide, here's some information on how you can better pest-proof your property. Here's who to call if you do have any further issues, things like that. So I guess I'll leave that to, I'll turn it over to committee if there's any questions
yeah.
or.
Question?
Okay, just hang on, Councillor Twill. Scott, is there a policy for this program, or is it just a service we provide?
There's no official policy. Essentially, we just follow the terms and conditions of the contract. So there's a tender that goes out every 3 years, I believe is what it is, which I think we're in the final year of this new, the latest contract. And so we just follow that contract. Yeah.
Right, because there definitely is lack of clarity for people. So we do. But Councillor Twill, you have a question. Go ahead.
I got 2 or 3 questions. In terms of the question of whether we want to continue on with the program, absolutely. This is a service that we've provided in this city for the last 20 years or longer. And it's a service that that the community embraces. So I'll state that for the record. It's a good program. I'm not sure what the confusion is. I mean, it's worked out well over the years. I know from a number of my constituents that participate in the program, it's been a tremendous help, especially, you know, when you're dealing with raccoons. I mean, it can be a pretty scary proposition. Raccoons can do a lot of damage. And again, the program has worked out well. I'm a little surprised to see it here. I thought this was under environment sustainability. Do they not administer the program, or is it?
They did, Councillor Twill. It was moved over to Public Works. Was it last year or the year
I believe
before?
so. Yeah.
Moved over to Public
beginning-
Works?
Moved over to Public Works.
2021,
Yeah.
Okay, it's moved over to Public Works. So, the question I have is, Scott, is you mentioned the word expectation. What is the expectation and you know, when people call City Hall, Public Works for that matter, and they say, look, got a problem with a skunk or a raccoon, like, where's the confusion in terms of expectations?
And that's a great question. I'm not sure as to why. Maybe it's not confusion. It's just the expectation that we should be offering a greater service than what we do. And that's not what this program set out to do. And nor do we have the resources to do that, to extend what we currently do. Because right now, all we do really at the end of the day is take that list of, we take the phone calls, create a list, and send it off to the contractor who further administers setting the traps. And then we just confirm when the invoice comes in, we confirm the number of traps that we know have been set and pay the invoice accordingly. But there are individuals that have complained about just the fact that they felt like it was supposed to be a much higher service provided than what we currently do.
And I think that is going to be key if we continue with this service, is to make sure that they understand that this is a very bare bone program. So I know we've received some emails and where there's been an abundance of pests or vermin around people's properties, and it was bigger than what the one trap drop was going to be able to fix. So the city's not going in and taking care of personal property, vermin, or pests. They offer a trap to come out, as Scott indicated, that sits for 7 days with the hope that the pest is caught.
Yeah.
But if you have multiple pests, they're not going to go in and,
You mean multiple pests like rats and mice? Is that what you're talking about?
well, yeah.
No.
Or skunks. Like if there's a family of skunks that live under your baby barn,
Yeah, right.
they're not going to maybe necessarily fix. I know I've received personally some calls around trailers or the mini homes in the mini park, because that's a prime place where they'll cohabitate for the winter and stuff. And there's been problems with that. And it's not, it's that clarity that the city's not going to go in and fix a really big problem if you're having an infestation with skunks under your mini home.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what I said previously, is that this program has been in existence for 20 years. It's a good program. I know my constituency is happy with the program, and they would like to see it continue on. It's big. It's a big help, and
And there's only been complaints since we've taken, and maybe sometimes it's
I don't know
different
I don't know what the
philosophies
issue
and
is. I really
service
don't.
providers, and whatever. Councillor McAleer, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McCabe. Just wondered, maybe a Scott question. Do we have any data on, number of requests or calls for this over the last number of years? Is it
We do. I think Simon's got some more details on that. I don't know if we got the most recent few years.
I don't have a copy of the most recent year's data, but on average, we were getting somewhere around about, it's a few hundred calls. From 2018 to 2020, I think they varied from 100 to 300 calls that we had. It's worth noting that a majority of those are actually skunk calls, not raccoons. And to the earlier point, when we're laying the traps, it's the original policy, at least unless it's changed, was that if the skunk or raccoon is actually on the site, is living at the place, is under a mobile home, like you mentioned, it wouldn't be covered by this policy. I think that's still the same, because that's a problem with the building that needs to be addressed in order to remediate the problem. Whereas this program was designed to be respond to raccoons or skunks that are frequenting an address but aren't necessarily living at that address, which raises the bigger point of how it actually works and whether it's actually achieving the goal, as a majority of the people are probably calling about the situation that Councillor Tweels mentioned, where they have where skunks or raccoons are on site and staying there.
excuse me, so did I understand 200 to 300 calls? Is that?
Yeah, it varies significantly, and I think that's in part based on the season and the amount of availability of insects.
But all calls would not correlate to a trap placement, correct? There'd be calls, then there'd be, and it just is.
For any call, for the most part, would likely get a trap, but it would not correlate with the number of captures, no.
Okay. And is there, do we have any sense, so if the city decided not to proceed with this or end it, what kind of cost privately some would expect to this? Is there any sense of that we know?
See, I think that's the where some of the confusion comes in. Because again, if you hire a private company and yourself, they'll come do a full assessment and recommend placement, number of traps. They do give you the full service, right? So you will pay more for that. And how to prevent future calls. And right now, all we're doing is setting a trap, and here comes a raccoon and gets caught. It gets removed. Well, may not be fixing the actual issue. What's attracting that raccoon to that area? Or the skunks? If it is a mobile home or whatever, some of these residents may need to do additional securing around their facility, because under a mobile home is very nice and warm in the winter months, and that's where they want to go.
Which we don't provide.
We don't, no. We don't provide that service of trying to get out a family, no. But what I think does happen is an individual call, say I have a skunk issue, and does get on the list, because they may not tell us that they are living under their building.
So what I'm hearing you say, I think, is if there is a major problem, a resident's probably going to have to engage a private contractor or individual party to come in to probably fix the problem.
That's correct, and I think that's where some of the frustrations or disconnect between where we're getting the complaints. The last two of them, whereas it's similar issues. It was a large scale issue with multiple rodents or pests in the area, and it most likely was because they were living under the barn or under the mobile home, and they were expecting again a full service when it was just one trap for 7 days, and that was it.
So we're kind of maybe providing a service, but it may not be the best service or the correct service.
Right. Every lot's going to be different. Every homeowner, if it's a large scale issue, it's going to vary in price. It will, just because of the fact that there's more work involved. There's more, maybe multiple traps. We only provide one trap at a time per residence for a 7-week period, or a
Great.
7-day period.
Thank you.
And what I would like to suggest, again, I think this has to go to council. I mean, staff have recommended terminating. I'm hearing here that committee's not necessarily in favor of that. We haven't moved to that point yet. But I would suggest that if this program's to continue, that there is some sort of policy attached to this, Scott, so that people are really clear with what the criteria is for the program. And I would also suggest that maybe we look at working with environment and sustainability to do some sort of an educational campaign regardless, whether it's social media or whatever. We're having huge issues with garbage in our city, and that is going to attract animals. So I think we need to look at getting more information out there for people so they understand what the consequences can be if we don't do things properly. So with that, is there any appetite to, I'd like this moved on to council for the final decision.
What's the recommendation?
The recommendation from staff is to cease the program.
Right. No, absolutely not. I'm totally against ceasing the program. We've had it for over 20 years. For the most part, it's worked out well. Sometimes I think from an administrative perspective, we seem to overly complicate things, and we look for ways not to do things when we should be a little more creative to try to help our residents. We have a lot of residents that have taken advantage of this program again over the years. It's been my experience that it's been well received. If there's isolated cases, then you know what, you deal with those on a case-by-case basis. But to suggest eliminating the program, absolutely not.
Well, and that's great. So we're not going to have consensus here to get this to council because we don't have enough people to vote. Unfortunately, I'm not.
Break the tie.
You'd have to get this to the floor in order for there to be a vote
Well, you can break the tie. The chair breaks the tie, right?
to get to council.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chair can break the tie. I want this I would like it, either way. Can I ask for clarification, CAO Mohammed? Will this go to council for discussion if it gets shut down here at committee, or does it stay shut down? Sorry.
I'm in favor of it going to council.
Yeah.
It's a bigger question of can a committee stop something from going to council? That's something I would have to clarify. It would definitely be going in your minutes and everything else that goes forward. to
Okay.
council. I'm not sure the committee has power.
I would like to see this to go to council for further discussion as well. So if it means breaking the tie, then I would say that we will support staff recommendation at this point to cease the program committee with Councillor Tweel in opposition. And this can go to council for discussion to make the final decision around this program.
Okay, so it's a 2-1 vote.
Absolutely. I think
Good.
anybody
Just wa-
that's
I just-
listening
I just wanna make
probably
sure that-
gathered that.
I just want to make sure that's recorded. It's a 2-1 vote.
Yeah, I'm sure, like I said, Councillor Tweel, you spoke pretty clearly, so that's great. All right, thank you, and thank you, Simon, for, maybe it would be beneficial if we could have some of that data provided in our notes for council too, just so that they could have the background information and stuff.
So there was a report written by Simon back
Wonderful.
in 2020. So what we'll do, we'll get it updated hopefully with the newest numbers and share that when we bring a report to council for discussion.
Yep, and I think, again, if we recommend that this proceeds, we develop some sort of a policy so it's pretty clear
Yep.
with what the program is, and look at service provider as well. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Number B, the pedestrian crossing signal installation policy. We went home last month with the draft that Riley had provided. He did a great job, and he's going to speak to us a little bit today so we can kind of try to move this forward. Riley?
Thank you. So just to kind of refresh everyone's minds on what it was. So it's a document that we put together to sort of guide our efforts in providing enhanced crosswalk measures throughout the city, in particular a system called rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So we put this together to provide myself and other public works staff at sort of a framework within which to work and within which we can assess potential locations for implementing this system. The need for this really comes out of the need for us to be consistent in our approach on how we assess these. This gives us a consistent set of criteria to ensure that when we do decide that a site warrants this treatment, that we're addressing the sites that actually need it. This is important for us to ensure that we're not being wasteful with our resources. We have a finite amount of these systems available, sort of in any given year. So this is something that we'll continually have to sort of purchase on a year-by-year basis. So obviously we don't have unlimited devices to use. So it certainly allows us to prioritize. And then it also ensures that we avoid the misuse of the systems, which has, that can lead to actually some negative impacts sort of on the grander scheme of things when we start using these devices incorrectly at intersections or crosswalks that may not warrant them. So in terms of how the guide sort of works and the process that we'll be following to apply it, generally the process goes pretty much like this. So a site would get identified by somebody. That could be an elected official, could stem from a resident, an email or a complaint or something like that from residents. But also, going forward, increasingly, we'd like to do that as within our department. So start identifying these locations ahead of time. We do maintain a sort of a running list of potential locations that may work, and they're sort of on our radar to potentially use this system. So that'd be the first step, just sort of identifying a site. Second step is us conducting a site assessment to evaluate the conditions of the site. And that would really take into account sort of everything around, obviously the adjacent property and land uses, the road characteristics, speed limits, all this type of thing. At this point, sort of a decision is sort of made on whether or not a site is viable or not. This is just to prevent a site from going too far into the process that it ultimately wouldn't be treated. So there's no sense of us kind of going through the process if we're ultimately able to identify early that it's likely not going to happen. So that could be the end of a particular investigation. If it is deemed that a site's potentially viable, we'd then do a traffic count, collect some data on pedestrian usage and so forth. And then we'd obviously review that data and sort of what comes out of that and sort of make a decision based on that. We then would sort of communicate the results of the investigation to whoever is relevant in that particular case. So for example, if it was a site that staff had identified internally that we may not really communicate the results if it didn't really get into anyone else's, if it didn't really come across anybody else's desk, but if it was a counselor that had requested a site, we would inform them sort of whether or not, or really what the results of that investigation was, just so everyone's on the same page. And then obviously, if we decided that we were going to install something, we'd then sort of start the process of getting that installed, and that might look a little differently just on a case-by-case basis and what it would actually take to install it. And then finally, if there is a system installed, we'd sort of add it on our list of areas that we'd have to monitor over time to make sure it's working the way we intended. And if it's not, maybe make some adjustments. And that also is kind of a case-by-case basis that will just depend on the site. So in terms of the criteria that are set out in the guide for where we would install them, we kind of set these criteria to narrow the scope on where they may be installed. So our goal is to identify, or to really use them on sites that are, priority. So oftentimes this will be on the busier streets with higher traffic where there's more of a need to support the pedestrians in safely crossing. So I'll just list them very quickly. So we wouldn't use these typically at traffic signals or stop control intersections. They're sort of more of a mid-block situation. We'd use them on sort of approved streets based on, you know, we want to focus on the main, sort of the quote-unquote main drags. We would look to form connections between areas that have potentially high like pedestrian uses. So, you know, schools are an obvious one, parks, so forth. So those are areas that attract pedestrians, and we want to be able to create, you know, safe connections between pedestrian facilities and those areas. Also, sites where there may be high latent demand for pedestrians. So meaning that maybe there's not very many pedestrians at the moment, but if there were this additional safe facility, that there would actually be quite a bit of usage. So that's a bit of a judgment call by times, but that's an important goal of this, is to improve things. So to actually, you know, add these facilities to areas that will make the overall active transportation in the city better. And the next one's sort of similar to that. It's just ensuring that we are providing good connectivity between our active transportation facilities and sort of bridging the gap where there may be lacking facilities. And then the last three are sort of in terms of how close we would put these devices to other devices. So we obviously can't have one of these devices every 100 meters on every main street. It's just not viable. So we would look to not apply these within 300 meters or so of one another. Of course, there's some exceptions, and it'll depend on the site and the case, but that's sort of a benchmark we're going with. We'd also avoid putting them too close to other intersections that have stop signs or traffic signals. Those are the preferred sites for pedestrians to be crossing. As much as practical, we'd avoid making people cross mid-block. So we want to direct pedestrians to those intersections where it's actually a better site for them to cross. And then finally, we want to avoid putting them too close to crosswalks that have a staffed crossing guard. And that's just, you know, due to the fact we would prefer pedestrians to, and particularly students, to cross the road at crosswalks where there's a crossing guard. So it may be possible to use both of those systems. So have a staffed crossing guard as well as a rapid flashing beacon, but we don't want to get into the situation where we have those two treatments separately fairly close to one another, because you have people sort of deciding on which one to use. We'd like to direct folks to one designated area as much as possible. Yeah, so that's really essentially in a nutshell how the process would work and sort of the criteria that we'd be using to make a decision on things. There's obviously a lot, you know, that in all cases there's some judgment involved, and we want to ensure that we're applying, like, you know, local knowledge and really just common sense in general to make sure that these criteria are working. You know, there may be cases where a site meets 7 of 8 criteria, but, you know, we don't want to deny that automatically. We want to, you know, kind of just step back and say, well, is this site really good? And I'm sure there'd be lots of cases where it is, in fact. So there's exceptions to be made, but the guidelines give us a structure and it gives us a baseline. So that'll be really helpful for us to kind of evaluate each site on the same set of conditions, and hopefully that'll really allow us to be smart with how we use these systems, stretch them as far as we can so that we can, you know, address as many of the issues as we can at the most important sites. And yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you very much. And I did read through the report, and it was really well written and well clear for someone that's not an engineer to be able to understand what you were trying to say. Thank you. Is there any questions from Councillor McAleer?
Yeah, just curious. on the installations that we have, like the ones there at Brackley Point Road by, near the Ellis Road, and the one handy UPI Edmund Crescent, like, are they kind of meeting their expectations? Are they having the effect that the data or the information? Is any information on that?
Yeah, so I think so. I mean, they certainly, the goal is to put them in high pedestrian areas where there is a lot of traffic. So look at both of those examples. There's a lot of traffic, and they're quite high pedestrian traffic areas as well. Those are really those are the two big things that kind of the two big boxes that have to be checked to warrant these things. In terms of how they're meeting expectations, I would say we don't have sort of running current data of how many pedestrians actually use the systems. That is an option that we can start to collect just through the actual devices. There's a capability of recording how many.
I guess I'm just wondering if it's any indication it's change in behavior, I guess, or is it too early, or?
That's always a challenge. Is we can put as many safety devices out there as we want. It's up to all the users. It's up to the pedestrian to press the button. It's up to the pedestrian to wait until they know the vehicles are yielding for them. And it's also up to the driver to be paying attention to all the signs and the lighting around them. And so that's something that you really can't measure. It's quite challenging to measure. We hear of near misses all the time. And sometimes they didn't hit the button. Sometimes someone wasn't paying attention driving. And I think that's one of the messaging we do need to ensure people are aware of. This isn't going to fix every issue. It's a help, it's an aid, it's a tool out there to bring more attention to individuals crossing the road. But all users, drivers and pedestrians, they all have a responsibility to make smart, safe decisions when they're out there. And again, it's like a pedestrian. I see it happen all too often where an individual's texting, walking on their phone, and they just think that they can walk right out. And yes, the MVA, or the Motor Vehicle Act, does say at a marked crosswalk, the pedestrian does have the right of way. However, they still have to take a second, look up, just like your mom and dad taught you when you're young. Look left, look right, look left again. You still have to do all those things. So there's still, that's, again, it's a hard thing to measure because of there's those psychology factors that surround this issue.
I know one thing is not hard to measure, somewhat related. It seems residents in the city, I see it all the time, and I was probably guilty of it myself, but I'm trying to do a better job of it. People running, going through orange lights. It's crazy in the city, in my opinion, personal opinion. Just staying with this for a second. Just on these, roughly, what's the cost to do one of these intersections, like the UPI one and the one there on Ellis Road or Brackley Point? Just curiosity.
Well, good question. So those are more, so there's two types of signals that we're talking about too. So the ones you're talking about with the big overhead light, we call those an RA5. That's just the industry name for them. We're kind of moving away from those now. We're finding, and research showing, is the flashing, little flashing strobe, we call them rapid flashing rectangular beacons. They're at about eye level, a little bit higher, and they strobe. And they're more intense and they bring more attention to them. So that's really the system that we're looking at going to for the most part. The RA5 does have a good use and purpose. If you have sightline issues, hills or curves, it's an additional feature that you can add. But you're seeing RA5s now are not being installed standalone. They're being installed with the flashing beacons, so which is what you're seeing out at in McCresson University Avenue. That's what we have there now. So if we do use that system ever in the future, we will add the rectangular flashing beacons.
And what was the cost of these, roughly?
Each of them are different because there's so much underground work and all that.
Ballpark?
somewhere in the range of around 100 and 150,000. Yeah, they're not cheap because they're significant. They're quite a big structure. A lot of underground utility, a lot of utility work. Our new system with the RA5, they're with the rapid flashing rectangular beacons, much simpler installation. You can rely on solar, so you don't have the same type of electrical needs. So it's a
Cost on that?
we'd have to, since we're going to try to do a lot of it in house. So we really don't have that breakdown right now. But we can try to put some numbers together and send that around to council or to committee here after in next week.
Just another
approved
quick question. Just on the 1911 jail, the meeting thing was going on. Did I understand that is that the functionality of that it was, is it good, bad?
Yeah, it is good, yep. So the unique thing about 1911 jail is you have the what we call the splitter island, or that little island in the middle. And really what that's there to do is reduce the pedestrian crossing. So as a pedestrian, you want to be in the road as little as possible. And so you try to reduce that crossing as much as possible. And so that's why we install those types of features. It's a bit of a safety or refuge island in the middle in case traffic starts going and misses this individual crossing. But it also helps drivers slow down too. We're narrowing the lane up. It brings more attention to the crossing. So that's another feature on major roadways. If we do need to go down that road, that's another just tool in our toolbox to add if it will help.
Yeah, thank you.
And Scott, just for point of reference, did you say there's approximately 10 that will have already been ordered for this year?
Do you remember the number?
Yep, so we have 22 units, so that's enough for 11 crosswalks this year. So
Nope.
just going back
We
to
gotta have
the
this
price
approved, and then we'll
Councilor
have
McAleer asked, the ones that we recently purchased were a price of roughly $2,500 each. So it's just over $5,000 per crosswalk. That's just for the RFB system. So that wouldn't include signage and staff time in for installation.
And the post and all that stuff as well.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll look forward to seeing where these land, but we first have to get this to council, I guess, and have this approved. So I need someone to move this forward to council. Councillor McAleer?
Well, I'd like to ask a couple of questions.
Okay.
First of all, Riley, thank you for your presentation. It's very in-depth. You referenced, Councilor McAleer talked about around Edmund Cressman. I mean, that was an option that I think Public Works implemented. I'm not sure if that was implemented after that area of University Avenue became 6 lanes. So, there's a whole lot of traffic out there, and, there's been a lot of close calls. So besides, that methodology, there are other options, and I'll ask to have that option put on the agenda for a future Public Works meeting. But, if you look at some of the challenges, Scott, as you're aware, we had a meeting about a year and a half ago, Birchwood Junior High School. They've asked for some type of a mechanism there because Ronnie talked about the crossing guards. Well, the crossing guards are only there certain hours of the day, and students are crossing, particularly along Worth Avenue, students are crossing, in some cases, all hours of the day. They're there for programs that take place at night. We have seniors that will cross there going to the Hennessy's Funeral Home. So there's a lot going on there in that particular section of Longworth Avenue. It's not just the school, the funeral home, probably one of the busiest funeral homes in PEI. So there's a lot happening there. So I think besides the research that Riley's done, there's more information. Excuse me. There's more information that's required when we're looking at each one of these intersections or requests for this type of a mechanism, because each one of them has its own dynamics. Each one of them has its own challenges.
Absolutely.
So it's not just, one size fits all. Each one of them are much, much different and requires, I would suggest, an adjustment and to adapt to what's taking place in that particular section of that street that we're referring to. So I appreciate the work you've done, Riley. I just think we've got to look at each one of them. Again, I'll go back to a case-by-case basis because it's a different dynamic and has its own challenges. And, you know, Birchwood Junior High School is one. The Boys and Girls Club is another. And even the ones that were put up on Belvedere Avenue out by the farmer's market, you know, that's, anyway, there's more, a lot more work that needs to be done here. A lot more.
You are correct, yes. And Riley did mention that each crossing, as it comes up on the list, gets looked at on its individual merits. So this is a baseline document. This is to provide us that guiding document to where our starting point is. It's not the end-all, be-all document. There is going to be site-specific changes or just decision-making, and that's all included in that. And again, it is also a living document. We will run it for a year. If there are, you know, if we're seeing consistencies between making decision-making, or if there's an issue, or if there's a matter that keeps popping up that keeps kind of saying, throwing our system off, saying, you know, it shouldn't go there, but we know it should go there, we can make that changes in document. So we got to get a baseline there, a policy that we can say, here's what we followed and here's how we went through the decision-making process and on the site-specific and through that exercise. Without this document, then at the end of the day, now we're just guessing. And so we want to have something that if people ask why we made the decision, we have that decision. This is what we followed. And we document everything. Every evaluation will be documented in terms of here's the criteria it met, and maybe it didn't meet this one criteria, as again Riley mentioned too, 7 of the 8 criteria. But then we have a rationale box, and that's the thing that we're taught in school, and that we do every day. If we look at every problem based on its individual merits, and say, okay, does it you know, 7 of the 8, and there's these other factors that we're factoring in. Yes, it makes sense to put it there. We're going to put it there. So, absolutely, we do take that into that approach, and we will take that approach to any problem that we face because, like you say, not one size does not fit all for many things, and that's we got to use some rationale and judgment on that, and so that's what we'll do.
That's why
Again, I
you're the
want to thank
engineer.
Riley for his presentation.
Yeah,
Yep.
great. Thank you. So can I have someone move this so we can get it to council for approval then? Councillor McAleer moves, seconded by Councillor Twill. Great. Thank you. We'll move that on. Great job, Riley. Thank you. I meant to welcome Kelsey Donovan here today too. Kelsey Donovan is the new admin assistant in Public Works. So she's going to be taking over for Wallace. So sorry about that when I started, Kelsey. Welcome. On to item C is the tree debris cleanup. And Scott, I'm going to let you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I appreciate you mentioning that. I was going to introduce Kelsey at this point in time too. Joey was the one that realized that we forgot to do that early on, so I appreciate you introducing her. So yes, Fiona, something that will never go away. I'm sure will always be on our minds. As everyone's aware, with the late season storm like that, residents had lots of trees still down in their backyard. Many people, I heard chainsaws in my neighbor's yard going last night. So more folks are cutting up trees that are still in their backyard or in their yard, and are looking for assistance for removing them. So we are recommending to implement again a cleanup program, a roadside cleanup program. As per the conditions I noted in the document here, and it will start immediately and go until the end of June, which aligns with the provincial government's cleanup program as well. And just so folks are aware, the conditions are: we want everything at the roadside neatly piled. Any long trunks, everything should be cut down to about 4 foot in length maximum, just to make it safe and easier to handle by our machinery. We'll probably start our cleanup early May, and end June 30th. It doesn't mean that if you put it out June 30th, it will be out. We want everyone to put it out beforehand. So, and we'll make sure lots of messaging goes out around that with our comms team for sure. And then the other thing, we don't want residents to get confused with the Island Waste annual spring cleanup. So we will not pick up leaves and bags. We will not pick up any other household debris, fence, building materials, any of that. We will not clean up any of that at all. If it's in with our piles, we will not pick up the pile. It has to be separated and has to be bundled and put in bags as per Island Waste Management. So folks should contact them or reach out or go to their website and find out exactly how everything has to be bundled. We are only doing tree and tree debris as part of this program.
Thank you, and I think as long as we get this information out in a solid comms, then we can make sure people are aware, and that's good. I think it's a good time, maybe, Joey, if you're comfortable updating Councillor Tweel on the Park Street cleanup with the woods. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just met with Craig Wood Products on site before I came here. They're a big company up in Tyne Valley who actually made the tables for the Parkdale room for us and milled all our previous wood. We had a contractor hired, doing a great job. Just it's a big scope of work here, which is going to require bigger machinery, and they would eventually be sending it to Tyne Valley to be kiln dried anyway. So this gentleman has offered services, and you'll start to see wood disappearing from Park Street the first of the week. So
Wonderful.
It's going to take us a little while, but we'll be getting it out of there over the next few weeks.
Excellent. Councillor Tweel?
Thanks, Joe, for the update. So, again, in terms of a time frame, I know you're going to start next week. I've got one of the workers at work down on that site that, as I put that in the email, indicated some of the challenges. The police are there all the time, and some of the things that are happening. So, if you would have had to put a time frame on it, what would it be?
It's such a variable because I'm dealing with two different contractors. I don't want to speak for the contractors, but if they will afford us some space in Tyne Valley, we will start to load trailers and haul it ourselves to expedite the process.
Okay, that's great, Joe. I'll get back to the worker. Now, in terms of the cleanup, I think it's good. I think it's a step in the right direction, but I have a couple of questions. Some of the residents in the city, some of them are seniors, some of them don't have the capabilities to operate chainsaws. We have major tree trunks that's practically right on the line. What are we going to do with all these tree trunks? There's one on Summer Street, there's one in Lower Bayfield. They're all over the city. Are we going to, as a department, are we going to be able to do something with these large trunks? I mean,
Are these on city property, Councillor Tweel, or are they on private?
They're right on the line for
Well,
most intents and purposes. So it's like, I'll be honest with you, it's unrealistic to think that some residents never ever operated a chainsaw to be able to, go in there and cut them down and pile them on the city's right of way. Like, can we not do something there to help assist remove these tree trunks? I mean, these are huge. These are not just small tree trunks. These are massive tree trunks.
As you recall.
That's my first question,
Okay,
Scott.
well, I'm going to answer your question right now, is that we already approved, we've held $250,000 for tree stump removal through Environment and Sustainability, waiting on province match. And if we want to talk about, that's new, that's a new initiative thing. We're not going to talk about that today, but we can add it to our next agenda meeting to think about.
Are we not going to take that into consideration?
Take what?
Those tree trunks?
Not today.
No, that's not, that wasn't considered?
So are you talking about trees that are still standing?
I'm talking the stumps.
Stumps.
I'm talking the stumps,
Okay, so
Scott.
the
Trees
stump-
were cut down and
So that
stumps
is
are
coming
there.
through the Environment Sustainability Department, not us, because it's private property. So there has been an initiative through the new initiatives approved, but the council has set the condition that the province has to cost share. So I think council has set 250,000. And waiting here back from the province, so you'd have to refer all future questions to Environment Sustainability. As is private property, we do not do that, so that's being administered through through them, just like the tree removal program that we had administered funding from the federal government, but the city administered for removing trees on private property.
Okay, so that there is an opportunity, if funding is through from the province, that the city will match it, and that means, let's be clear, going on to private property and help removing these stumps.
Again, you'd have to confirm environment sustainability as it's their program, but I believe that is the intention. That's correct.
Well, that's what we already approved, the $250,000 in that. The criteria would have to be established and stuff through their department, but that would be Councillor Bernard question for his committee on that. Did you say you had a second question?
Maybe, Scott, are you aware of where they're at, the environment sustainability? Have they made any progress in terms of having the province come on as a funding partner?
I have no knowledge on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a Councillor Bernard question. Any other question on the tree debris cleanup program or the Park Street? Councillor McAleer?
Yeah, no, just on the stump thing. So, you know, if I get a stump in my backyard, or lots of residents do that are inside the property line, not on the line, not in the city, but if I have a stump in my backyard, I can get it smaller. It may not. You're not going to come in and grind the stump, but if I can get another chunk off it and I can get it to the road, it's going to get picked up, correct?
That's correct. Yep. As long as it's to the road, we will pick it up. That's correct.
Thank you.
And that'll all be clarified in a public service announcement so people can see what they expect to pick that up. That's good. Okay.
And just one other thing too,
Sorry.
anything that's on the public right of way, and some park spaces as well, a lot of them are done, but we're still continuing to clean up our spaces as well, just so if any councillors get questions about trees that we're down, but we're city trees, we are getting them. Just take some time.
Absolutely. I know your staff's been working hard. Good. Item D, the use of right-of-way for business.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a bit of a unique one. So let's go back. So downtown, in the downtown core in the parking stalls, there is a bylaw that allows for restaurants only to have a patio within the parking stalls. That is administered under the Police Act, or under the Police Department, Emergency Services. If it's outside of that bylaw, then it's public right-of-way, and Public Works is the administrator of the public right-of-way. So any approvals for uses, private use of the public right-of-way has to come through our department. We have, this year, we've gotten a new request, but in the past, we've also gotten other requests about potentially other businesses expanding into the public right-of-way and using some of those parking spaces for the sale of various items, to, putting out bicycles and things like that. We don't have anything formal policy on that. And so that's why this matters here, with council or with the committee to see what direction we want to go with on this. Because we have to remember our parking is very valuable to both the city and to the business owners downtown. We have a letter in your package that comes from Downtown Charlottetown Inc., who all these businesses are a part of, that doesn't support any expansion beyond the patio bylaw to reduce or use more parking, especially in the summer months, for businesses to expand their storefront. And again, yeah, parking's a premium downtown. And the lack of a policy makes it very difficult on who gets to do what. So what at the end of the day right now, what we're recommending, we wanted to bring this matter to everyone's attention, because in case everyone gets calls or question on why we made a decision, what we're recommending is put the brakes on this for about a year. Everyone knows we have a big parking strategy that we're going to get off the ground here very soon, that we want to review all the parking in the downtown area and get recommendations from a consultant on how to better utilize our parking and understand what our parking needs are going to be in the future for this downtown area. And then based on that, we want to see what recommendations they, we want to see what deficit we have in parking. You know, we want to make sure that if we do bring in a policy like that, we want to make sure that we don't take up too many spaces. That is going to cause quite an issue downtown. You know, we want to make sure we're putting a policy in place that we can still have lots of parking, on-street parking, while still working with the various business community in the downtown core. So I guess, again, my recommendation is we wait a year until we get that study to understand our downtown parking needs today and future needs before making a recommendation on a future policy.
Which only makes sense. And I think, you know, we're hearing, again, silos a little bit, where we have parking, I think, crosses 3 committees within the city, right? It crosses economic development, it crosses public works, and it crosses police. And I think, CAO Mohammed, that we need to look at kind of either having a parking committee or of something, but this having to go through 3 committees to get somewhere is confusing.
I'm very confident of the study. It will likely recommend a parking commission, which is essentially what you see across every other municipality, Maritimes, North America, which is a separate department that looks after parking, and it's a one-stop shop. They do
Yeah.
everything parking related.
And we did just invest in this parking initiative, so we might as well wait till we hear what comes back before we make any decisions on any policies, and definitely keep in the forefront. But it just protects you when people are asking, at least to say, right now, we're not at, we can't right now.
Exactly. That's why I wanted
Yeah.
to bring it to the forefront, just so everyone's aware of the questions we're getting and why we're saying not today, but maybe in the future.
Okay, Councillor Tweel first, then I'll come back to you, Councillor McAleer.
I can understand the rationale for, the study. I'm not sure of the makeup of the parking commission, who's going to be sitting on the parking commission. Is there any requests that are before the police or the Protective Services Committee now, which administers the parking? Is there any requests or before the Protective Services Committee that you're aware of, Scott?
So there is one to Public Works. Like I said, police only deal with requests that come in from a restaurant. Someone is serving food. That is their bylaw that the council has assigned to them to administer the patio one. Under Public Works, because there's no definition about other use of parking stalls, it is just considered part of the public right-of-way, use of the public right-of-way, which use of the public right-of-way approvals come from my office.
Okay, so there's one application.
That's correct, as of right now, but there have been in some in the
Is that coming from a
past.
restaurant, or is that coming from one of the food trucks?
Neither. So again, food is police.
Right.
Any other use of parking stalls comes to Public Works.
What's the application consist of?
It is the downtown cycling.
Okay.
Yes, would like to use a few spots out in front of their business for staging and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, well, I know that when we had challenges before, the city was criticized heavily. Criticized heavily. Last thing I want to see is get into a situation where, social media and you get people on there, that'll criticize the city, and then they really take the city to task. So I think you need to be aware of that, Scott.
Absolutely, and that's why we don't want to make any quick decisions right now. We want to take our time and make sure we're providing you folks with the most accurate information and providing you with the best recommendation based on what we're seeing to move forward. And so that's why, again, we're doing the parking strategy this year. It'll likely take a number of months to collect all the data and provide and write the report. And once we have that, that will be in front of this committee, and it's likely going to be multiple committees until we figure out that future structure, where parking will sit and how that will look. And then based on that report, then we'll make a recommendation whether we want to entertain expanding the use of parking stalls beyond their current patio bylaw.
Thank you. Councillor McAleer, you have a question?
No, just a comment, as has been circulated in our package, just the letter from Dawn Allen, Executive Director, Downtown Charlottetown Inc., they're expressing basically her concern and the board's concern with any additional parking spaces that, that could be lost as a result of an expansion, I guess, off this. So as the city's representative on that committee, I just wanted to give rise to the very clear, I guess, where they sit.
Exactly. And I also don't know if she mentioned in the letter, but it also impacts the downtown Sunday market, right? So the more spots on Queen Street in particular that are taken up by patios or other users, the more little chaotic, I guess, the setup for the market is. So again, there's a number of pieces that need to go into final recommendation on what we would recommend to council, and that's why we want to say we just want to put the brakes on right now, and take some time to review it and provide you folks with all the information.
Thank you. And you can see for number E is the Public Works work order system in your package. And I believe, Scott, you're going to be starting having these in councillors' mailboxes so that they can see the requests that are coming in from residents. And it will also show you who has followed up with the request and whether or not the request has been complete. So I think this is information only, but if there's anything else you want to add on that?
You are 100% correct. Every councillor will get a copy of this for your ward only. It will include any request that comes from you or residents in the area. And this gets updated every week or every 2 weeks, I believe. So yes, a copy right now will be dropped off in your mailbox, and we'll look at doing something more digital in the coming months.
Excellent. Good way to follow up and make sure things are being done. And okay, so that's information. And the next point was a follow-up to Councillor Tweel's request regarding, I think it was tree cleanup in the old Protestant ground that you were talking about last committee meeting. Have you had a chance to talk to the board or director people there or update us?
So what we've done is looked at what has happened in the past. And so there's an MOU signed in, I believe, 2012 between the city and the old Protestant burial ground. And it outlines essentially what responsibilities are for each group. And the reason why this is there, the city used to provide a stipend or a grant, a yearly grant for helping with some of the maintenance. And then it was decided that instead of that, we would provide assistance in terms of just a maintenance staff person there to help mow the lawn, clean up twigs and branches that have fallen, straighten and clean up headstones, and paint some fences, as well as they even provide some tourist information to the folks that come in. Especially the last two people that we've had in there, they've taken upon themselves to learn about the burial ground and provide that historical knowledge to the people that visit it. So that is the goal. It's just small maintenance. It's not meant for us to go in and remove any of the large stature trees at city's expense or anything of that nature. They can. We have in the past told them they can apply for grants and things like that. But beyond just basic maintenance, we do not provide any further assistance in the burial ground.
Thank you.
Hey, I got a question. So, in terms of the aftermath of Fiona, where all those major trees come down, we're just going to leave that as is. We're not going to help.
It's private property. They have a board. They have funding, of course. Again, if they wanted to ask for a grant from the city, they have that right, and we have directed them in that direction in the past. But beyond that, no, we haven't provided any private property assistance in terms of commercial or organizations like this beyond the roadside cleanup or through the private property cleanup program that was administered by Environment Sustainability.
Oh, what about the trees that we took down there about a year ago, a couple of years ago? Those trees are massive trees, and if it would have come down on some of them houses, it would have caused a lot of damage and destruction. And I think it was the best thing that ever happened, where the city went in and help provide that service. And I know the neighborhood was extremely pleased with that assistance and the actions taken by the city. So
So that was an emergency removal.
Yeah, it was.
And the reason why, so they could not get a contractor. We had a contractor on retainer that we already had the prices. So we said we would provide our contractor to go in and remove those trees. And I'd have to follow up if it happened, but they were to reimburse the city. And beyond that, we advised them then, we have continued to advise them that any major tree removal is up to them to organize and to pay for, not at the city.
and if there's an emergency situation, will the city entertain it?
If we get to that point, but again, at that time, there was no contractor available, and we had one on retainer that we could use. As far as I know, there's not, there's contractors available now, and we've given them lots of notification. They've known since Fiona hit that they have trees that are damaged. They had been advised. The Environment Sustainability did do a assessment as well, which is above and beyond what we typically provide. But their team went in and evaluated the condition of all the trees and provided them with that report as well, and identified what trees should be removed. So we've gone above and beyond, and it's up to them now to remove those trees that are hazardous.
And once again, whether they have the funding or not, it's still, the onus is on them.
It is their property, and just like anyone else, my property, your property, we all have a responsibility to maintain our own property. So yes, the onus is on them to remove trees.
Well, I know it's a different set of circumstances, Scott, I would argue, because it is a cemetery. And, I don't think they have a whole lot of resources like we do provide maintenance, we do provide personnel. I think it's a good investment for the city. It's probably one of the oldest cemeteries in the province, and it's also an attraction for visitors that will come here and go up and read the headstones and trying to learn as much history as to who's buried there. I think the first Attorney General of the province of Prince Edward Island is buried there. I think a couple of Fathers of Confederations as well. So
We'd have to change the policy, Councillor Twill, and maybe that's something we look at at a future meeting to work with them.
And we'd also have to look at other cemeteries
yeah.
too. We've had the request over the years, and we've told them no. They continue to, they have funds for maintenance. They provide the maintenance on their properties, and trees are a part of maintenance. And so we continue to tell them no, even though they keep calling us. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you for the update. We also have, for information that will also go out for council in their package at the capital projects update, which is provided every month. So you will have an opportunity to look through that to see where projects are as far as in the process. So if there's anything special that you need to add to that, Scott?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But if there are any particular questions, I can answer.
yeah, I'll come back to Towers Road. Where are we at, Scott, again?
The survey was recently completed, and they're working on the drawings now. So things are progressing like we expected. So I'd expect us to be tender ready by the end of the month or 1st of June.
For Towers Road.
That's correct. Yep.
Great. That's
For all
great news, Scott.
projects or for just Towers Road?
Well, for that one and other ones
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, there's a number of projects that are getting ready for tendering. So we're getting close. So you'll see quite a slew go out here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, well,
Perfect.
I'll just reiterate once again, there's a real urgency there on Towers Road because of how unsafe and how dangerous it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Twill. Just to provide update, as per the email, we received the truck policy. Staff were very busy getting tenders and things ready for this month, so we haven't had an opportunity to look at that. So that will come back to our May meeting, as well as the Buchanan Drive. We had also asked to have that added to our agenda this month. That, as after our meeting, we saw that the private Property owner has committed to putting a sidewalk on Buchanan Drive, so we'll just wait and see the update, because again, that is private property, so that was good to see. So we have our last point today, which is tenders. We have 2 tenders that anticipated to go forward to council. So Scott, if you want to speak to those.
Yes, first one is for North River Road Master Plan. So this is to look at the traffic on North River Road and provide us with a roadmap for the future on how we can better handle it and what type of infrastructure upgrades we'll need to manage that that traffic. So an RFP went out. We received 5 submissions. All have been scored in accordance with the scoring matrix that was included with the RFP, and the bid from WSP Canada Inc. in the amount of $58,035 is the bid that we're recommending to award.
Thank you. And they had the highest score as well as the lowest price. So it was a win-win. Can I get someone to move this and so we can forward it on to council? Councillor McAleer. Councillor Twill, you're good?
It's a question. On the master plan for North River Road, how much work is actually committed inside the city's corporation?
What do you, I guess, in reference to what? How much work?
Well, they're working on the master plan, so we just go outside. Like we have a number of engineers now here working in the city's corporation, and I understand one of the major reasons for not just the gentleman that's sitting to the left of me is that we would do a lot of this work in house. So where is that from? Is that
So we
capital goes outside, more operationals inside? Is that the rationale there?
So this is an overall study. It requires a number of there's a number of pieces that go into something like this. There's a lot of traffic data collection. There's a lot of you need a number of eyes on it because it's a large piece. It's a large piece of infrastructure that is. It takes a number of labor hours to look at, review, create a report. It's totally beyond capabilities and was never the expectation of the city to do studies like this. No. The rationale for engineering or to increase our engineering service was to be able to handle the volume that we currently have that we are that we just can't because of resources. And also better future planning in terms of, we need to be better on identifying crosswalks to improve, identifying intersections that need to be upgraded in terms of new signals, new signal timings, things like that. There's a lot of stuff that hasn't been done to what it should be, the level it should be, and that's the rationale for new staff. As well as some of the smaller work from designing, some sidewalks and things like that. It's all about a capacity at the end of the day, and so something like this is always has been and will be an intention to go outside, just because there's a high level of technicality behind it, and you need some varying experts around the traffic world who can do the modeling, who can do modeling is a big piece of it, and the traffic, just understanding the traffic volumes and future projections and all that stuff.
Just to follow up, Scott, so that study will include whether it's adding another lane or other infrastructure. Could be active transportation pathway. It could be looking at a number of amenities in terms of what they're looking at, the data, the recommendations, and North River Road's a very busy road. So in terms of vehicle traffic, pedestrian traffic, cycling traffic, all of those things are going to be looked at. Is that correct?
That's how we look at it. Yeah. So anytime we do this project, just like University Avenue, we ended up with a multi-use and a sidewalk, one on either side of the road. So yes, they will look at those. They look at pedestrian crossings, traffic signals. Can we reconfigure the existing lanes? Do we need to widen? They look at all those factors, but then they also look at the existing right-of-way that the city owns. Can we expand? what, if we absolutely have to expand, then here's the number of property that we may have to purchase or things like that.
It's
So
all-
there's a lot of factors that they look at. It's a very big and all-encompassing program, and it'll take months to do. And that's why we go to external help. Internally, we manage it. We're meeting with them typically weekly, reviewing drawings, reviewing data. So there's lots of city staff involvement in these projects. Just the day-to-day labor work around is consultant does it.
Yeah.
Just quick question. Five firms responded to the tender. Would they all be local island firms to have a presence on the island? Just out of curiosity.
Like they all do work on the island, and I can't tell you where their staff live. I know office spaces, but with remote working now, you have staff everywhere. So
Yeah.
I won't comment if they have island presence or
Yeah,
not.
no, that's
because
fine.
I
I
don't know
ju-
where all their staff work.
Yeah.
I just recognize some of the names and some I don't. Thank you.
So we have Councillor McAleer who's moved to send this. Are you comfortable seconding? Yeah. Seconded on to council. All those in favor of moving this to council? Thank you. So we have one more tender to look at, which is on Passmore Street, on the Passmore reconstruction, which is a shared project between our utility and Public Works. Scott, I
Yes.
see you have a report there, but if you want to provide a quick summary?
Perfect. Thanks, Chairperson. So yes, went out to tenders for this work for the reconstruction of Passmore Street. Two bids. Island Coast Services was a low bid, and for a total amount of $1,683,160 plus taxes. There's two portions, so there would be two POs at the end of the day. One resolutions, but we break it out into two POs as Water and Sewer has to cover their share of the work. Just one thing for everyone's knowledge, that we are going to have a public meeting on this, just to get the public involved. There's an aspect of water and sewer to do with some of their infrastructure and connecting into the homes that they want to meet with residents and see how they can help them out and make sure all that's done properly. Anyway, that information will be coming out here very shortly. Water and Sewer is taking the lead on that to get that one out the door, but Public Works will also be there as well to talk the plan and walk everyone through it and what the street's going to look like at the end of the day.
Sounds good. Councillor Twill, it sounds.
Scott,
Can you go through me just whenever you want to speak? if
oh
you
yeah,
don't
sure,
mind?
okay, Chair.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
Okay. Scott, as you know, I'm glad to see the project moving ahead. I am apprehensive of removing one side of the street, moving the sidewalks on one side of the street. So in the event that we have the public meeting and there is concern raised by residents on the side of the street where the sidewalk's going to be removed, is there still an opportunity to maintain sidewalks on both sides of the street? I just don't want to get into a situation where residents are saying, well, if you're going to remove a sidewalk on the street, then why don't you remove it on that side? Why are you removing it on my side? I just wanted to
I'd
bring
like
that
I'd like to have
forward.
one side of them.
Pardon me?
I'd like to have one sidewalk. You could move them to Ward 7.
Yeah, I understand that, John, but those two sidewalks have been there for 1,000 years. And, it's a residential, I know you made reference to other streets, but, Garfield, businesses on one side. This is a neighborhood. This is a residence. So I just wanted to bring that caution to the table so that when we have a meeting, we better have the answers. That's all I'm saying.
So I believe letters went out last year at some point in time, or one point in time when we were starting this project, and the feedback was there's questions about it, if I can recall correctly, but no one overly opposing to it. And of course, that's why we want to have a public meeting, just to hear everyone out, give them the opportunity. One thing I will caution is that we have two issues on the street. We have a very, very, very narrow right-of-way. And so we absolutely have to meet the minimum size standard for our machine to clean the sidewalks, which is minimum 1.5 meters wide. So if we were to put two sidewalks back, We would likely have to look at potentially eliminating on-street parking because there wouldn't be enough room for everything. So that's the big challenge, is trying to fit everything in, still allowing on-street parking. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff there. The bonus is we're going to add more green space. All these streets in that area could use some beautification. Any street could. So we're hoping to add a little more green space, look at some tree planting as well. So there's some things that we're looking at as the street gets towards completion to beautify it even more. So look forward to the public meeting. Look forward to meeting the residents. And like I say, the previous consensus, and that's why I went down this direction, was there was very little, other than some questions on the rationale why we were recommending that. I don't recall really any opposition to just one sidewalk, but I'd have to go back and. Pardon? That will be coming out soon.
Thank you. And I just think I'm going to make a comment as we get ready to close. And as chair of this committee, I sense a little frustration with how I'm trying to run the meeting. And the meeting I'm trying to run is to follow the process, Councillor Twill. It's not to make you frustrated. I think I've been more than fair to try and make sure everybody has the opportunity to speak at the same time, keeping the meeting on task. So I hope you're not feeling that I'm not giving you opportunity, but I do want to follow the proper process.
Madam Chair, can I just ask a question through the chair? Could I just ask?
Yes.
So Scott, I look at the budget, the capital budget. You budgeted 1 million for Passmore. So that was on the public works side. What was budgeted? I can't find what was budgeted in water and wastewater.
You would have to refer to the manager of water and sewer. I'm not sure how.
Yeah. So you're over your budget then.
We're under our budget.
Well, 1.6.
Yeah. So
And-
our portion's just under. It's around 650 plus taxes, so we're under budget on our
Because it
portion.
includes both. The
Nope.
water. This is yeah.
So there's so from this resolution, we'll create 2 purchase orders.
Right.
Water and sewer will pay for their 1 million and some. It says it right there in the
Yeah.
resolution.
And
The city and Public Works will raise the resolution for just under 650,000.
650,000.
So we're under budget. Yes.
Okay, so I'm just trying to clarify, if we budgeted 1 million,
Mm-hmm.
are we looking at transferring some from Public Works to the utility, or?
No, we can't do that.
Yeah, I know you can't, that's why I'm asking.
No, so the water and sewer, it's been discussed, all I know it's
was
been discussed
discussed?
at their committee, and it's been approved at their committee level, so we'll bring forward this resolution. Wherever they're finding the money, I'm not sure, you'd have to refer that back to that
Okay.
committee.
And
manager.
Madam Chair, this is the second year we've been going on with this project. As you said earlier, letters were sent out to the homeowners. I did speak to one homeowner on the street, and he said that he was informed by Canada Post that we were doing work, and I said, sir, we can't go to a public consultation until we have the drawings. So what the councillor from the area is asking is that we go to the meeting, get their ideas, and then go to the engineers? Is that what you're getting from that?
So what we did before, we had 2 concepts that went out in a letter, I believe. And yes, it was delivered via Canada Post. So you can say for this specific street, please send out these letters to them. So that's, I believe, I have to go back and remember, but I believe that's what happened. And so that's probably where the confusion was. He got a letter in his mailbox from Canada Post. But yes, it originated from us.
Chair, this project's been discussed, and I think those letters went out about 4 years ago. I'll go on the record saying it was at least 4 years ago that those letters went out. So it wasn't 2 years, it was 4 years. And I've had the opportunity to talk to residents as well. And that's why I raised that, Scott, about, the elimination of sidewalks on one side of the street. I just wanted to bring that caution forward. And I'm sure we'll have a variety of opinion at the public meeting.
So, Madam Chair, again, just through the chair to the engineer, chief engineer.
Yep.
So, I'm trying to get this clear in my mind. You're going to get drawings done from, is it ESP that's doing it, EXP?
So everything's done.
Okay,
Yeah, so we
we're gonna
based
take-
everything off of that letter and the feedback that we
Right.
got, right? And the drawings, and Councillor Twill, yeah, I can't recall. It's been at least 2 budget
It's at
seasons
least
that we
2.
just, I may have been 3, I don't recall. It's been a few years since this has been on the books. And so, yes, we had, I believe, 2 concepts where they went out in the mail. We were waiting back, see what type of feedback we got. And we based our final cross-section based on what feedback we got.
Yeah. So again, Madam Chair, just through the chair to the chief engineer. So I'm just trying to figure out, so you take the EXP plans to the residents and they go, no, we don't want that. So we'll have to go back to EXP and get them to do a redrawn. Is that what you're preparing to do?
No, our is more of an information here, just a reminder of here's what's going on, what's going to be happening. That's why it's a water and sewer led public meeting, because they're talking about the water lines, as you're well aware, in the issue in the area. So they want to leave, but we want to be there. Hey, here's why this is all coming up at the time. Here's the plans. Just a reminder to everyone what's going to happen, and provide that feedback, and gives them an opportunity to speak with myself and my team that are going to be there as well.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Yep.
And we're looking at, from the administration level, of really kind of fine tuning these public meetings and what's required with a public works public meeting versus a planning public meeting, what, notices that go out, what, Scott's information meetings are a little different than planning's information gathering meetings. So I know that they're going to be working on this because it gets pretty confusing. But thank you, Scott. Thank you. But I need someone to move this tender forward to get to council. Moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor Tweel. All those in favor? Wonderful. Is there any new business that we wanted added to our next month's agenda? Okay, Councillor Tweel?
Yeah. For the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I've had been requesting the city take a serious look at underground pathway on University Avenue out near Renwick Crescent. And I'd like to request that at least put it on the agenda and bring in the engineer that's worked on projects that are in that area, at least have a discussion. So I think it's important. It's 6 lanes of traffic in that general area. I think there's an opportunity there to maybe look at students and other personnel that are crossing University Avenue to make it safer, especially with the expansion at the university in that general area, the new medical school, other buildings that are being looked at. I'd at least like to have that discussion.
I think we can look at that for discussion then on our next committee.
Could I just add, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I know you have to get going, but if anyone that leaves university, UPEI, goes left south on University Avenue, that crossing is a dangerous crossing. So if we're looking at a pedestrian underpass, I think we should be working with our university partners to look at an underpass between those 2 points, Browns Court and the university. If we're going to open this up, and you're looking at a lot of money, it's a lot of capital expenditure, it's not cheap, and it's also trying to maintain it. So yeah, let's look at both sides.
But we'll have this discussion.
Yeah,
You know
just
what?
a
We're not going to discuss
I know,
anymore
just
here
a
today.
clarification. I'm not talking Browns Court. I'm talking further down.
Yeah, he's talking down by the.
But I'm talking about the more dangerous area, which is Browns Court to the university. 'cause
And I'm talking
students-
that we'll talk about where and stuff
students have
next
been
meeting.
hit,
We're not
almost
going to have
hit.
any more
Madam
discussion
Chair,
on this at
Madam
this
Chair,
point.
thank you very much.
You're welcome, because that's new business for next month. Okay, so now we're only at a motion to adjourn for this meeting. Motion to adjourn, moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you.